Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you with the second episode of Understanding Thyself, and this is Understanding Self-Validation. So this episode will be focused in on understanding, well, what is validation? What is self-validation? What is even the ideal of a self? Like, what is this ideal of myself or who I am? Okay. And then we'll understand and look at, language and narratives, okay, and how they influence the mind and influence, you know, the psychological construct of our reality. But even better is then we'll understand or talk about, the biochemical responses of my, you know, thoughts and feelings and emotional states. So when we understand this, we're able to then biohack our body to release specific chemicals to increase the likelihood of success in what we do. For example, if I can dramatically increase my dopamine hits, okay, and I can feel euphoric in a conversation, I can create an atmosphere of euphoria, which can influence the decision making of the person that I talk to. So, just understand this, we have a biochemical factory in our brain, okay, that can release so many different variations of all the chemicals. And we got to understand alcohol and drugs and cigarettes and stuff like that, and all these compulsive urges are just us seeking through negative patterns to hack the biochemical responses. So what we got to understand is, if we really want to, hack our biochemical responses, well, one, we can use external stimuli, and unfortunately, the ones that the majority of people use do have negative health benefits to the body. They degrade the body. So we got to understand that. But also, you know, we can do it through external stimuli, or we can understand internal stimuli. So internal stimuli is using thought to evoke emotions, and using emotional states to evoke biochemical states in the body. But we'll get into this more in detail later. But we'll start off with, well, what is validation? So to to understand this is to understand decision making. Validation is the essence of our decision making, because it's how we, assess if we succeed or if we fail. And what we've got to understand is that in society, it is advantageous for us to seek validation externally because it increases inclusion. So by asking someone their opinion on how you went about something and getting their feedback increases your bond with that person. Because, it's so we got to understand that in life, okay, to exist in a community of people, we have to have certain traditional behaviors or interactions. And this is what we can see is diminishing, and why, communities are sort of breaking down, is because no one's investing into them, you know, to the point of having the majority of the population investing into it. But when we break down and we stop with our social interactions, we become hostile. You got to understand, fear is the unknown. So the less I talk to you, the more like suspicious I will become of you, because I cease to understand what's happening with you. So I don't understand your position. So we got to understand that becoming disjointed or disconnected from other people is what breeds insecurity about other people. So the way to overcome, social anxiety is to become connected with a lot of people. Now, it's not that you go out and you make a million friends, but it's like if you can connect with 10 to 15 good people, that will give you enough of a base to where you'll feel on the positive more than you'll feel on the negative. So in every situation, your self-belief will be a lot higher than your self-doubt. And the more disjointed you become, the increase in self-doubt. Now, the reason for this, or one of the reasons for this, is when we become disjointed, we become isolated. When we become isolated, there is only our perspective. So if I'm isolated, I only understand from my point of view. So it limits my understanding of the situation and the environment around me. The more people I have that are looking at different aspects of the external environment, the broader my understanding will be about the external environment at an accurate level. So what we got to understand is that it's this perceived fear of weakness which causes us to become suspicious of other people. So, it's insecurities that, maybe this person might move against me or might act against me, or maybe they, you know, like it'll depend on the relationship and the situation. But if we took, for example, friends groups, you know, the suspicions would grow that maybe they're, spending more time with other friends and, they're intentionally doing it to isolate me and all of this. And you'll start to overthink. And the problem is that the more you focus in on a problem, the more your brain is going to create the illusion of new problems. So they are real problems, they're just not your problems. But you take them on as if they're your own problems. And we could look at this like, for example, let's say we were exercising and looking to lose weight. So, we're looking to diet and lose weight. We're going to do the best we can. And then what happens is the illusions start coming in of, well, if we're going to do this, we have to do it properly and be the healthiest. So we have to have a specific diet. So, like, let's say a no carb diet. And then we have to have a specific regime in training so that we're doing specific, durations of like exertion and things like that. And we start creating all these illusions when the truth is all we have to do is avoid eating the worst food and just stick to some form of consistent exercise. Like, that's it. But we create these illusions of other people's beliefs and other people's expectations, and we take them on as our own instead of understanding that that's just another way you can do it. But if it's not profitable for you to do it that way, then what's going to happen is you're going to bog yourself down trying to solve multiple problems that are irrelevant because they have no actual impact. Like, honestly, every human being understands that fruit and veg is the quickest and easiest way to be healthy. You know what I mean? Like, eating processed food, you will never get healthy doing that. Everyone knows this. Anyone that tells you otherwise is just talking shit and being a dickhead. Like, they're just being a fucking idiot. Because the thing is we naturally know this because we have natural urges and instincts. Because for hundreds of years or thousands of years, that was our primary food source. So it's ingrained in our genetic memory. So that's why we have instincts towards certain foods. And we understand these instincts as cravings. So we got to understand a craving isn't a biological response. A craving is a psychological construct, it's a psychological response. So, for example, I will crave cabana from the servo, the greasy fucking, poison. But the logical understanding is that it is, high in grease, high in salt, it's highly processed meat. Okay. So, like, already we know that it's going to negatively take away from your quality of life, because it's like there's nothing that my body can use out of it. And to be honest, for anyone that would argue against that, if you actually look and find, okay, and trace back the meat sources of those sausages, so just go to the abattoirs and find out what meat goes into them and have a look, and you'll find that the higher the processing in meat products, the the more questionable the meat. So it's not that it's bad meat, but it's all the offcuts, the snouts, like all the just the bits that they have no use for. They just chop it up and chuck it in and grind it down. But you've also got to understand, like, these animals in, you know, the sort of factory farmed, you know, the large like graziers and that, like, a lot of these animals are like heavily disease ridden. So like cancerous growths and shit like that. And these cunts at the abattoir don't really give a fuck. So, like, if you understand the knowledge, okay, you can change your decision making. So even though I crave that, like, what am I actually craving? Well, there's three sources of fuel for your body. There's carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, so your muscles. So if we starve ourselves of carbohydrates, the secondary fuel source our body seeks to use is our fat storage. That's why you feel, if you go on a low carb diet and you don't have carbs, you feel lethargic and you feel like pretty hungry and pretty shitty and a bit weaker, is because you're using fat fuel. Fat is less efficient than, carbohydrates, which just means it requires more energy to break down and repurpose fat into energy than it does for carbs. And then the last result is, if you run out of carbohydrates and you run out of fats, is your body will start cannibalizing the muscles. So that's why if you ever go on a diet, you have to remain on a high protein diet, because you don't want your body to cannibalize your muscles. So that's why some people, when they lose weight, when they go from a bulk to a shred, some of them lose muscle size, is because they take away all the carbs. And if they've already got a low body fat, like, percentage, what will happen is their body will consume the protein at a higher rate, because they'll be exerting themselves at an extreme rate, but they won't be eating like that, so they won't be fueling their body. So the thing is whenever you crave something, your body is craving carbohydrates. You know, you might be craving, the vitamin C of an orange, so you're craving orange. Or you might be craving, like, so we just got to understand that cravings are just psychological constructs that our subconscious uses to direct behavior towards a specific outcome. But the problem is, our mind doesn't understand the difference between good and bad. Okay, so for example, like, the meaning is all constructed in our conscious and our subconscious mind. But our subconscious mind doesn't have logic, doesn't have reason. Okay? So when our subconscious mind acts within its own, validity, or within its own, constraints, what will happen is it's not reasonable, it's not logical. So what we got to understand is our subconscious doesn't really care so long as it's getting the results that it wants. So, for example, you know, when you truly are in hunger, you're not craving junk food. Like you're craving the most like sustenance dense food. So, what we got to understand is what is an actual craving, which is just a signal from my body saying I desire this, and then what is like a perceived craving. So, for example, if I crave nicotine, that's a perceived craving. My body doesn't need nicotine to operate. So, when I crave nicotine, it's just a psychological craving. I want nicotine, I don't need it. I just want it. I feel like it. So what we got to understand is the separation between what we actually need in life and what we desire and want. Because when we can create that separation, then we can understand, well, the meaning goes to what I need in life, and what I desire is the meaningless stuff of life. So, if I'm desiring, to be in good shape and to be in good health and to have a good diet, it doesn't mean anything. It's just what I want to do. So it's not that I need to have this motivation and meaning to keep it. If I want it, it'll be like I'll just naturally move towards it. I don't need meaning. But I do need meaning into the core aspects, of what I need in life. So I need to have meaning into the foods that I eat. What is the meaning behind the foods, that I eat? Do I just eat, any junk, or do I put the effort into, you know, try and eat as, healthy and sustainable for myself? So sustainable just in the sense of, you know, if we're eating foods that have low chemical like compositions, well, that's more sustainable for my body because my liver's not having to scrub so many toxins out of the food that it's trying to digest. But also, when we understand the purpose of our digestive system and we don't think of it as a garbage dump, think of it more as a report, no, a resource reallocation facility. So this is where food comes in, and then our body or our digestive system recodes, you know, that food into cells for our body and deploys them into our body and reconstitutes our cells. So, you know, if we're only ever giving it like the worst junk, it's never going to be good. But you know so it comes down to you have to be able to validate the diet that you want, the exercise regime that you want, and to be able to do it because you want to do it. And that's why validation is so important. But the problem is when we seek external validation. So when let's say I do a training regime, and I want to get into great shape and I seek validation externally, well, how I'm going to approach that is going to be completely different, because now I'm going to ask people what are the most important things that they think, and then I'm only going to do those things, and then I'm going to seek validation from them that I'm doing them well. And the problem is we're not actually using our mind and our ability to think, to critically think. Because the thing is depending on what sort of um, results that you want in life will depend on who you listen to. Like, if you're trying to become a strong man, you would not listen to a bodybuilder, because a bodybuilder is there for shaping and toning and the development of the muscle. Whereas a strong man is looking to, reach a maximum performance and then look to hit, you know, like much higher targets. Where we're talking, they're looking to hit 400-500 kilos on deadlifts. Whereas a bodybuilder would probably stop at, 100-200 kilos because it's too much strain. Whereas, so understanding this is just understanding, well, who do you go to for the information, and what information is valuable to you? So, if we don't understand how to validate our internal thoughts and beliefs, because that's all we're doing. So, whenever I seek validation, so let's say, I run a 40K marathon, and let's say I run it 10 minutes under the last time, or like the last record, right? And smash that record. If I'm out there seeking validation, like, what am I seeking from people? Like, I'm seeking them to give me approval so that I'm able to experience and feel the emotions that I want to feel. So self validation is just the understanding of cutting out the middleman. Of, I don't, for certain things in life, I don't need to validate external. But for example, let's say I want to go and do a new hairstyle, and I want to, get the impression of what other people would think if I was going to do this. And let's say it was drastic. Let's say I was going to shave my head bald and go bald from